Welcome to Afya Fix, where we learn the basics of lifestyle medicine, education, and we are able to practice them at home. I'm your host, Gladys Ombongi, and with me is a live audience to help us unpack today's topic. And I have our guest, Dr. Eddie Ramirez. Dr. Eddie comes to us from Pennsylvania State, and he is a lifestyle medicine doctor, an author, a researcher, and an international speaker. Today we're going to talk about how to regenerate beta cells. That's a big name. So you don't want to go away because you're going to learn lots of biology, but in simple language. Doctor, please help us understand, what is this big name? What are beta cells?
Yes, so if you are diabetic or you're interested in not getting diabetes, you better learn about the beta cells. So the beta cells are located in your pancreas, and one of their main functions is to generate insulin. So those cells are gonna get sick when you have diabetes, and we're gonna learn today what we can do for those beta cells regarding our habits in order to have some hope for those people that have diabetes.
Wow, I'm really looking forward to this exciting lesson today. There is also another big name called the microbiome. Would you like to unpack that big name?
Yes, so microbiome is basically the bacteria that inhabit our intestine. It actually inhabits in many other parts, but we're going to focus on that one. And what we know very well is that when people move from a rural setting to a city setting, things change. And one of the things that change is the fact of diversity. So if you think about it, your ancestors that had to live, in a very, simple way of the things that were growing in the ground, and they have to be gatherers also. Not everything they cultivated. There were some plants and things that they knew you could eat, and they would go to the forest and harvest these things. So something that we know is that in the cities, we tend to eat less limited different foods, They tend to be less variety in the city compared to people in a rural setting. And then when we go ahead and check those bacteria that inhabit the people in the cities compared to those bacteria that inhabit in people that are very primitive, for example, I saw in southwest Ethiopia, you have this hammer people, the ones that put those clay in their mouth and so forth. I understand there's some even in the Kenyan side, isn't it, that have similar behaviors. Those people, they tend to live like very, very simple, when you compare the bacteria of those people compared to the average person living in cities, we find a very different ratio. Number one, the variety of bacteria is much bigger, and then the type of bacteria that inhabit those guts happen to be very distinct to the ones in the cities. And we can start making some very interesting correlations. For example, we know that those bacteria that we have in our gut are involved with our immunity. Therefore, when you create that unbalance of the city, you're more likely to end up, for example, with an autoimmune disease. Because those bacteria that inhabit our intestine are supposed to keep in check our immune system. But once we move that ratio of bacteria, we get ourselves in trouble. Because now things that were supposed to calm down our immune system are no longer there. And then things are going, out of whack, secondary to that imbalance of things that we have created by eating less variety and too much refined foods and too much animal products. The combination of those three things are what causes that problem.
And do these microbiome bacteria require any special kind of food to just grow and maybe to have a good balance?
So the best things that you can do for your microbiome is eat a high fiber diet. See, not all the fiber gets digested in the early parts of your digestive tract. In fact, when you're eating a high fat, high fiber diet with a lot of different varieties of different types of fiber, some of that is going to end up all the way in your colon, and that's actually food for those bacteria. But if you're eating, too many animal products, not enough fiber, because they don't get enough food down there because everything is digested higher up in the intestine, then those bacteria that are thriving in those high fiber diets start to decrease in number. Some of them actually completely disappear. So one of the things that you can do, you can eat what are called the prebiotics, and basically are those high fiber foods. Where do you find those? You find those especially on legumes, okay, your chickpeas, lentils, beans. You find those on your whole grains. You find those on your fruits and vegetables. So that's why, one of the many reasons why you should be shooting for about 40 grams of fiber, ideally 50 a day. Do your mathematics. I encourage you to do that. Read labels, go on the internet and see how much fiber has an apple, a carrot that I just ate, and do your mathematics. Are you meeting that 50 grams of fiber a day? You will see how your whole system works much better.
Thank you. I have another big word, at least 3, and that will be enough for this lesson or this session. What are incretins?
That's right. So, how does the pancreas know how much insulin to secrete? Well, the way that God created the digestive tract, God gave some messengers. And those messengers are called the incretins. So the incretins help regulate how much insulin the pancreas is going to secrete. So the way it works, when the food is passing by our digestive tract, we have special sensors that are sensing what you actually ate, and then the cells, some of the cells in the digestive tract will send that signal as a form of incretin, which will arrive to your pancreas, and then your pancreas knows, okay, this is a lot of sugar the person ate. I better, secrete much more insulin, because in that way I keep, regulated things. And we can see in the screen this graphic that says incretins, and we know that if those incretin signals are nice and big, the person feels more satiety. You feel satisfied, less likely to be snacking later on and so forth. We know these are very important for the diabetic, because many times the liver starts secreting a lot of glucose. And we know that when the incretins are high, the liver doesn't need to be secreting all that glucose that contributes to high glucose in the blood. So when you check, that you have too much sugar in the blood, and they also regulate the speed at which the food moves in your digestive tract. Also something very important, because if things move too fast, it means you're going to be hungry again, and then there's more likely that you're going to be overeating and so forth. And also, as I mentioned, one of the most important things is going to be to calm down that insulin, so that we don't have tremendous levels of insulin, because too much insulin that is coming off your pancreas is actually hurting your pancreas. So we need to be moderate about that.
So then the incretins help to regulate how our sugars behave in the blood. What about fat? Is there a relationship between those two? Would you like to tie that in as well?
Yes. So the problem with fat is that fat end up doing the opposite. As I mentioned to you, you have these sensors that are sensing, how much, food is there, and trying to calculate, and then telling the pancreas how much insulin to secrete. So what ended up happening with the fats, especially animal fats, saturated fats, oxidized fats, the fats that have been, coming out of animals, these types of fats, when they pass by those sensors that are supposed to send that incretin, they're actually toxic to those cells. Therefore, the incretins are having a hard time communicating, what's supposed to happen and so forth. And you're literally hurting your digestive tract by eating that high fiber foods, high fat foods. So that's why we need to be so careful what type of food we're putting in our system.
And you've spoken about fat, but there are different types of fat. And sometimes you find the brown fat. Would you like to talk about the brown fat?
Yes. So one of the things that we want, especially if our goal is to help the person, achieve their normal body weight, is to burn more calories. This is mathematics 101. Energy comes in, we use energy expenditure, and then if there's an unbalance of that, if there's too much of those calories coming in, we're going to end up gaining weight. Or the opposite, actually. If there's less calories coming in and I'm burning more calories, therefore I'm actually going to lose weight. So one of our helpers that we have is something fascinating. This is like cutting edge type of science, are something called the brown fat. Not all the fat that we have in our body behaves the same. So brown fat actually is a very efficient way of burning calories. When we do exercise, that stimulates, some of that brown fat. Not only our muscles are burning energy, also the brown fat is using energy. Also, the foods that we eat, certain spices such as peppers, they actually stimulate the brown fat to burn more energy. And also foods that are, especially the legume family, such as the soybeans, such as the beans, even certain nuts and certain seeds can actually stimulate that brown fat, and they actually help you lose weight if you have excess body weight. And the fantastic thing that happens is the following. See, not all the food is the same. Let's say that I have whole, grain type of bread, the one that is nice and heavy and, it's all this fiber there. And I have here white bread. When I eat the brown, the high fiber type of bread, that one, what ends up happening, because it stimulates that brown fat, it is documented in the scientific literature that you will keep burning more energy after eating that type of food. Compared to the white bread, you're going to stop burning energy sooner, therefore higher probabilities to end up with an exceeding amount of energy, which the body will accumulate as fat in your body.
So then, having said that, then it means then diet, the kind of diet that we eat actually would affect the way the calories are burnt, depending on what you put in and eventually what becomes of it.
That's right. In fact, we can see that in the screen. There's an interesting study, the after meal calorie burn. And in this study, they were feeding two groups of people. One was eating their normal diet. The other one was eating a full plant-based diet. And they found out, as they were measuring how much energy is being burned, the people eating the plant-based diet was burning 16% more calories. Even though they were eating the same amount of calories, but the quality of the food was different. This one was high in fat, highly refined. This was whole foods. Therefore, with the help of that brown fat, you actually end up burning more calories. Isn't that fantastic?
It is, and it's a good way to
without
lose weight.
suffering.
Yes.
That's the beauty of this. You don't have to be starving to lose weight.
it's true, you really don't need to starve because you want to lose weight for sure. And there is this also very popular thought that is out there, a myth. Or I don't know if it's a myth, but something we can discuss and find out if it's actually a myth. Does sugar really, really increase the risk of diabetes? How does that exactly work?
Yeah, so there's multiple published papers on this subject. And usually it's not the sugar per se, but it's actually the accumulated calories that sugar comes with. That's what really causes the problem. And you know, you have a soda, you have a juice, and those are things that you just gluk, 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 gluk. You just drink the whole thing, you know, and you eat a lot of calories secondary to that. So there has been 3 very interesting studies that took big research papers, and then they started analyzing what are the results of those different studies, and then they put the conclusions. And study over study over study came to the conclusion that the increase of risk of sugar happens to be by the fact that you are increasing the amount of calories. And in fact, you can see this one on the screen, sugar sweetened beverages and incidence of type 2 diabetes. It was found out that for each serving per day of, for example, a soda or a juice, you know, with a lot of sugar, you increase by 18% your risk of diabetes. So that's why we need to be very careful, you know. Don't eat, you know, the juice version. Eat the fruit version. Okay. Don't eat the orange juice. Go and eat the oranges. You know. Don't eat the apple juice. Go and eat the apples the way that God made it. And in that way, all the fiber and all these different nutrients are there. They have to refine the apple juice in order to get the apple juice.
And so you're discouraging us to eat without chewing.
That's right. That's right. That's the key.
And I'm thinking of something else that is maybe something that you can help us understand, especially those watching us from home, oxidative stress.
That's right.
What role does it have, especially when we think about diabetes and this whole story?
Yeah, so oxidative stress is when we are introducing in our body things that are damaging our cells. So I like this illustration. You can see it in the screen. That balance that says free radicals and antioxidants with these rocks. So basically, you can see in the screen how there is natural damage that happens. You know, our cells, because of we get angry, sometimes we don't sleep enough, wrong types of foods, and so forth. They create damage to our cells. But God has provided in our food something that are called the antioxidants. As long as these are in balance, everything works very well. But look at the graphic on the screen in which there is that unbalance, you know. And you want to have an unbalance so that the antioxidants are a lot and that oxidative damage is the least. But many times it's actually the opposite. Many times it's too little antioxidants. We don't eat real foods. We don't eat enough fruits. We don't eat enough vegetables. We eat a lot of animal products, which cause a lot of that oxidation. That's the reason why animal products age you. You know, if you have a high animal diet, you are going to be looking older and older sooner. You're going to have more wrinkles and so forth secondary to that. So which balance are you going to choose? That's the question, you know. Are you going to have, you know, that plant-rich diet that is going to provide all those antioxidants to stop that damage? Or are you going to let your body age prematurely? And if you age prematurely, you're going to get sick sooner and you're going to die sooner.
And you'd have cut your life short.
That's right.
Committed suicide.
Literally.
Maybe before we just wrap up this particular section, you could now tie in the aspect of beta cells. How do they reverse, or why are they necessary anyway when you think about diabetes specifically?
That's right. So I want you to see the following graphic that is in the screen, the one that says normal, overweight, and then T 2D, which means type 2 diabetes. And then in the bottom, you can see those beta cells. Notice how those beta cells under the T2D are big. Those cells are having a hard time functioning normally, that they're starting to increase in size and somehow trying to meet the demand. The sugar is too high. They're not able to send enough insulin, and they're literally suffering, those beta cells. And there's some interesting studies that show that medication is not the answer. They put people on the leading medications, and they were trying to see, if they stop the damage of those beta cells. They do not. In fact, there's some medications that I don't personally like. They actually damage even more those beta cells. So in a study that was published for 16 weeks, they started measuring, the visceral fat that we were talking about, that fat that is inside. And it was shown that the people that were following a whole food plant-based diet, visceral fat started to decrease, which is fantastic. That means that oxidation is going to start to decrease. They started measuring fasting glucose. You can see that in the insulin resistance. So the insulin resistance started to decrease. That means that the sugar was going into the cell instead of just circulating around your blood and raising your blood sugar. But the beautiful good news was that when they started measuring function of the beta cells, the longer they followed the diet, the more regeneration that happened on those beta cells. That is fantastic news. Because see, if you destroy all your beta cells, that means that you're going to be diabetic for the rest of your days.
True.
But if we're able to regenerate those beta cells, that means there is hope of reversal of that type 2 diabetes. Therefore, the choice is in your hands. What are you going to do? Are you going to let your beta cells be destroyed by not changing your lifestyle, or are you going to stop those bad habits and start that regenerating process with that whole food plant-based diet? And the thing of it is that you need to do this as soon as possible. You shouldn't wait. The longer you're waiting, the more you're destroying those beta cells on that type 2 diabetic.
Thank you very much, Doc. We want to take a break. You have learned something very special that we can actually, if you're pre-diabetic, or even if you're not there, you want to keep your beta cells in place by not, destroying them, and you know what diet to follow. So we will be right back after. Welcome back. Before we went for the break, we were talking about regenerating beta cells. I'm sure now you know the big words we spoke about, the microbiome and all those, and you need to be listening this over and over again. Now we want to just tie this by some very popular diet that you may have heard called the Atkins diet. What is it, Daktari, about this Atkins diet? Do you want to tell us something about it?
Yeah, it has many names. Actually, it's not only Atkins. Sometimes we call it under the name paleo. Sometimes you'll find it under the name high protein diet.
Yes,
Sometimes you'll find it under the name South Beach diet. They have all kinds of names, but it's basically the same principle, which is a very high protein diet. The theory that they use is that they say that because men evolved, they were in caves and they were dumb people and they didn't know how to do agriculture, so they have to go and eat animals to eat. Well, that's interesting because that's actually not the story that the Bible tells us, but that's another topic for another discussion. Yet the same type of people that have that type of idea, they have found out that it's actually not true. even the old records in the caves and so forth, people were eating grains. In fact, if you go to my Twitter account, EddieRDMD, I like to very much interested in this topic. And there was an interesting article that came out showing that from the very beginning, according to even secular science, people were eating, high levels of starch diets, because these are the types of foods that give you long-term energy. I don't recommend refined starches, but we need to eat, these high starch foods. And yeah, you can see that in the screen, this is what many times they eat, this namachoma is called.
Yes, namachoma.
Not only it's not the best for your diet, it's actually equivalent, eating 1 kilo of this is equivalent to smoking 600 cigarettes at the carcinogenic potential that they have. So you better have a good insurance policy if you're going to be eating this, because you're high risk for disease. In fact, there was a very interesting study. You can see there all-cause mortality. You can see on the screen. In this study, it was a meta-analysis. They took all the studies that have been published on the subject and they put them together. And it was found out that the people following those high-protein diets have 31% more probability of dying early. And then when they broke down, you can read the article further, why did these people die? 14% higher probability of ending up with a heart attack or stroke, and 28% more probable of dying of cancer. And I can tell you, dying of cancer is not a nice thing. I can tell you as a physician, the person suffers very much, when they are having this cancer long term. And the fascinating thing that it was found on a separate study, you can see that on the screen, the one that says diabetes. It was found out that the people following that Atkins paleo type of diet have 37 more probability of ending up with diabetes. And now we know why, as we have been discussing this, because naturally animal products are higher in fat. And we said those high animal products are going to end up affecting those cells that are sensing your food, and they're going to be affecting, the metabolism of the body, and they're actually going to be stimulating the visceral type of fat. So it's interesting, people lose weight, some of them, but their healthy markers don't improve. Yes. Their insulin resistance doesn't improve. In fact, some of them end up with gout and many other problems. Their kidneys are suffering because it's so toxic, those high protein diets. Your kidneys, your liver end up being affected secondary to that.
That's true. That's true that there's so much that can be spoken about this topic, and I'm sure our audience is very stimulated here and they have many, many questions. Please, let's go and let's have our first question.
Thank you. My name is Newton. I have a question. It comes in a bit of parts, but it's just a single question. At the community level, it will be a bit difficult to, introduce mostly people in the rural. They are not as educated as the people in the urban areas. It will be difficult to, introduce them to regenerating better cells and all that.
That's right.
So this really basic question. What really at the formative stages of diabetes, what will be the signs and symptoms to look out for, that you could tell someone there's a sign that you should go and get checked?
That's a good question. And usually we find the term too much hunger, too much urination, losing a lot of weight very fast, okay, and a lot of thirst. Because the sugar in the blood is increasing, one of the ways of getting rid of that excess sugar is through your urine. And just like if you make, some lemonade and you put too much sugar, what are you going to do? Well, you add more water, and then, it starts to balance a little bit. That's what happens when you have too high sugar in your blood. You get all this thirst, and you drink and drink and drink water. secondary to try to decrease the amount of glucose because you stimulate the urination. But because you're drinking so much water, these people are going to come to you, in the clinical practice and tell you, doctor, I'm urinating at all times. Even at night, I have to wake up so many times to urinate because of all this sugar that they are eating. Why are they losing weight? Because even though there's a lot of sugar circulating in the body, the sugar is not making it into the cells. And that's why the body literally has to destroy your own muscle in order to survive. And that's why they're losing so much weight. It's not a healthy way of losing weight at all. So yes, that's the type of symptoms that are present that you should go and talk to a health professional because, you need to discard a diabetes problem.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you find people, just to add to what he said, when they lose that weight very fast, people don't want to look that way. So they want to gain the weight and you're telling them it's not possible. The body is actually responding to damaged beta cells. Let's have our next question.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ogusu Orlens. I have a question that is a bit crazy.
Okay.
One, it's about fat, animal fat.
Yes.
From my listening is that now we are discouraging animal fat.
Mm-hmm.
Now my question is, if one can take animal fat and do exercise, because you talked about exercise somewhere.
That's right.
Can it be something that can be
Balance.
in check? Okay, and on the other side of the same, does it mean now we should stop having animals because they are of no use to us, because they are toxic in other way, because we have their meat, we have their products in one way or the other?
That's right.
Yes, please.
Good. That's a really, really good question. And as an answer to that, I'm going to tell you the story of a very famous runner in America by the name of Jim Fixx. In fact, I actually encourage you to Google it. Fixx is F-I-X-X. He is the one that made running popular in America and then worldwide. His story is that he was what they call a couch potato, somebody that was just sitting down, all depressed, and didn't want to do anything with life. And one day he saw in the television, some people running and said, maybe I should try that, I'm going to try running. So then he started running, and he actually became pretty good at running. He was actually running marathons. So we're talking about, long distance type of running. And I remember an interview that they made him. You can actually find the interview online. And they asked him, what's the most interesting thing, what is the thing that you like the most about being, such a long distance runner? And his answer was, well, because I can eat whatever I want and it's no problem to me. I burn all that. Well, that's what he thought. Sadly, a couple of years after that interview, they found him in the road, on the side of the road, dead with a massive heart attack. See, the running didn't, contrast the negative effects of his diet. He should have continued running. I don't discourage that, but he should have followed a more scientific type of approach. And yes, that answers that question. This is not the only one. I have a close relative of mine. Exactly the same thing happened to him. He is very much into exercise and so forth. His diet is not good at all, but he was very much fit, And what ended up happening to him? Heart attack, And his doctor explained to him, to him it was actually a shock, when he was hearing from his doctor. As he was analyzing, what his usually diet. He said, this is a wrong diet, You're going to end up with a second heart attack. So, that's the answer to that question regarding, can exercise, balance that negative effect. And what are we going to do with all those animals and so forth? That's actually an excellent question. And there's other countries that you can see are moving into that direction. Very, wise countries, policy-wise, such as Denmark. You know, Denmark is actually one of their goals. They would actually like to decrease the amount of animals in the land because they know very well that if we use that land to put plants, we can actually feed more people instead of feeding animals, and then we use a lot of food to feed those animals, and then we get little food out of them. So we could actually solve many of our hunger problems if we were to decrease those animals and instead plant foods that people can eat.
Excellent. That's a good question. That was really a thought-provoking one. Let's have our third question.
Thank you. My name is Wango Peter. My question goes to, I have friends who go about being proud that they rarely or barely take water. So what is the relationship in the context of diabetes, of hydration, and the prevention and management of diabetes?
Yeah. So your question was about the
Water, people who don't take water.
people don't take water.
and they're
Yeah, this
happy
is
about
very
it.
interesting. You know, very, very interesting. I've seen this among patients. In our program, patients that come for the diabetes, control, there's some that just don't like to drink water, period. And fascinating thing happened. The improvement is not the same as somebody that is drinking, the prescribed amount of water. So it does make a big impact when you are drinking the right amount of water regarding your function of your metabolism, because your body needs that water. As I tell my patients, is like trying to wash your dishes with juice, for example, or try to wash your dishes, with a soda, Can you do that? No, isn't it? You need water, clean water. In the same way, your body needs clean water, good amount, in order to function properly. Just general rule, how do you know you're drinking enough water? If you urinate and your urine is dark in color, has a lot of smell, watch out. That means you're not drinking enough water. So by that simple guideline, you can, self-regulate how much water you should be drinking.
And would that affect them to get or not get diabetes?
It can technically affect the diabetes by the fact that the body has problems functioning normally. Okay? Yes. So yeah, watch out. There's a reason why in this program we encourage proper amounts of water. And we even have one here as an example. Okay, we drink the whole thing, usually when we are recording.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Let's have our last question.
Thank you. My name is James Omoyo, and I thank you for your presentation. Actually, my presentation, I remembered a statement someone said that if evolution was true, then there could be toxins or poisons that man could actually tolerate by now, because we are really surviving throughout.
Yeah.
Now to my question is, I know of a friend who has parents with diabetes, and they've done the diet B12, but they're not doing the exercise that well, but things have not changed. Could there be something else they're missing that they can do?
That's right.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. So, if you have somebody diabetic that is not well under control, one option is to contact somebody that is, knowledgeable to help you. One person that I would highly suggest would be Gladys. She could, give the right counseling and so forth. Many times a person thinks they're doing the right things. And as you start, examining behaviors and so forth, they may be eating things that they thought they were healthy, somebody told them or they found in the internet, and they're actually making the diabetes worse. So that's one way of helping the parents. And the second concern that I have is that child is actually a very high risk for diabetes. If your parents had diabetes, especially both parents, you are at very high risk for diabetes. You better switch to a whole food, plant-based diet. That's my case. I actually did a genetic analysis, and in the genetic analysis, it actually tells me, what risk of diseases I have and so forth. And in the results, it told me that I'm at high risk for diabetes. Not little, but high risk for diabetes. Yet, you check my blood glucose, everything is completely normal. Why? Because I know that I need to take care of myself and need to follow, that whole food plant-based diet. And for those people that say, oh, but doctor, that's too difficult. I can tell you, I've been to 85 countries and there's always something to eat. Okay,
Yes.
that's something I don't compromise. And there's always something whole food plant-based diet. So if in 85 countries I have found it, don't tell me that you in your community cannot find it.
No,
I am sure it's there. Okay, so that's the way that we are going to win that battle.
Excellent. 85 countries, there is food for you everywhere. So today we are going to practice something else. If you have any questions or comments and you'd like to ask those questions, check the numbers on the screen displayed there on our YouTube channel, our Twitter handle, and we will actually get back to you. And you can also, maybe you're interested in being part of this live audience, we welcome you to come and engage with Dr. Eddie and all our guests that we find from time to time. Welcome to our third segment today, and we are so happy one more time to have Esther Juarez, who's joining us all the way from Weimar University. Esther is a nurse and an educator, and she loves to teach this to not only our patients, but to even the general community. Today we are going to learn about something that's very special to different people, our faces. Our external bodies, how do we make them look so good? If the inside is good, the outside should also be good. So Esther, we're here to learn about clay. Tell us more about this.
So this is a wonderful, nice, not too expensive remedy.
Yes.
We find different types of clays. So here in Morocco, actually, you find the Moroccan clay. So you're going to see that we have different colors. This one is bentonite clay. This one is French clay. And this one is kaolin. There are others, but these are more common.
And these are all not locally available. I mean, not locally available, but I mean they don't belong to here in this part of the world. Can we use our own, our usual traditional clays?
Yes. Yes, you can use your own clay. And I think I was walking around and I noticed that you may have something like this.
Yes, we have red and we even have some white one.
Yes. So the reason you see different colors is because clay has a lot of different minerals. And it depends on the minerals is going to be the color. For example, the Moroccan clay or the red clay that you have here, it's rich in iron. That's why it's really, really red. It's very powerful to draw bacteria away and also a lot of toxins, heavy metals. So it's very powerful to detox. The bentonite clay is from America, from Wyoming. So it's volcanic and it has different minerals, manganese, magnesium, copper, calcium. All the clays have a lot of different minerals. The French clay is green because it has plant matter.
So the algae, I believe so.
Some type of greens that are part of the French green clay, and this is very good for infection. This one is, all of them are good for infection, but especially the French green clay is very powerful for infection. And they have the French white clay. It looks similar than bentonite, but it's a little different. It's more green. And the kaolin is very soft. Actually, they make makeup with this kaolin.
Yes, I've seen it on some products.
So it's very, very soft. It doesn't take moisture from the skin. So it's very, very kind on any type of skin. Yes.
Perfect. So now, how do we use clay?
Okay. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you how to make a poultice. So we use clay for infection, we use it for inflammation, we use it for all kinds of conditions where you want to draw away toxins or germs or any type of infection. For external use, you can make a poultice. And a poultice is something you're going to put on top of the skin.
Not internal use.
Not internal use. This is going to be on the area that you are going to treat. So let's pretend that our friend Ethan has an infection going on here on the arm, and even if he has pain or inflammation, we can use clay poultice on the ankles or on the knees when people have pain because they're inflamed. Any type of edema, you can use clay. Also, congestion because you have indigestion.
Or eating.
Yes, you can put clay over the abdomen, over your liver, and it's going to relieve congestion from internal organs.
Oh,
yes.
That's nice. I'm just imagining if I'm doing it on my abdomen, for example, to relieve indigestion, how long will I need to stay with that?
So you're going to keep it as soon as it dries. Once it's dry, you need to remove it.
So it flicks off and that's it.
Yeah, it's your skin, your body is going to absorb nutrients from the clay, minerals and all the benefits from the clay, and the clay is going to absorb, same as charcoal, but also absorption. So it has both.
So there's absorption and
absorption.
Ah,
so the clay is drawing out toxins from your body, but your body is also absorbing benefits from the clay.
Yes.
So this is why it's very powerful.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm gonna make one with this is bentonite clay. So I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon of bentonite clay with water. Now, when you use it for the face, you can mix it with different remedies that are good depending on the purpose. So if you have infection, if you have acne, for example, you can put tea tree oil, which is very good antiseptic.
Yes.
A few drops of tea tree oil. If you have red skin that it's very, sensitive, you can mix it with chamomile tea because that's calming. Also mixing it with honey or with aloe vera gel. And then you just mix your clay with those elements and then you apply. It's important to know that we're not going to use metal spoon with our clay. Because all the time. Because this one is metal and the clay has an electric charge. So it has to do with electricity and the ions and all this. So we need to use wood and glass. Okay, so don't use metal.
Can plastic work?
Plastic would be the second option, but glass would be better in wood. So I'm going to put 1 and then 1 of warm water. This one is warm water right here. So we're going to mix it and make a nice poultice. Now, the charcoal, we put on a napkin because it can, stain.
Yes.
But with the clay, you apply directly on the skin.
So you just put it straight onto your skin.
Yes, so the clay goes directly on the skin. And then you will see the benefits, and see how it absorbs a lot of water. So
yes, it's actually,
so
you can think actually there's no water in there.
And the water should be warm, a little more. And it doesn't matter when you have extra water, you think it's too watery, you'll see how it's gonna get thicker and thicker because it's absorbing. So now once you have your paste, you're gonna apply it on a gauze or a cotton cloth. Any cotton cloth can work. A piece, a handkerchief or something, just a piece of cotton cloth. And then you're gonna apply it.
So you don't even mix it completely?
No, I would, but because of time, I'm just mixing it, But you can keep mixing.
Still work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just, it looks like mud, okay? And
it is mud,
It is
isn't it?
mud. It is mud.
It's healthy mud, I guess.
Now, this is the poultice. So this you're going to apply on top of the skin.
And maybe before you apply, the consistency should be this thick.
Yes.
Like one that doesn't pour off.
Yes.
Okay.
No, and if it's too too watery,
Uh-huh.
it's gonna get drier and drier.
So you want it thicker.
Yes.
Almost
So
done.
thicker. And then you're gonna apply directly on the skin. And you can keep it like that unless he's gonna be moving, and then you can wrap it.
Uh-huh.
Just to keep it, and this plastic will keep it moist a little longer, but you don't have to. If you apply it usually in 15 minutes, if you don't put plastic, usually 15 minutes it will be dry. So I want to show you one on the face if our friend allows us. You want a face mask, Ethan? Your face is, he has a very good, nice skin. But yeah, and then you can wash it later. So
and that's it for that one.
this, we're gonna leave it for about 15 minutes to 30 minutes because it has plastic, it's gonna last a little longer.
Good.
So, but I wanna show you the one for the face. So the one for the face is gonna be the bentonite, and then this is ground oats.
Oh, so the one we use for our breakfast cereals. That's what you mean.
Correct. So we're gonna do one ground oats, and then we're gonna mix it with clay. And I'm gonna use the same just because I don't wanna waste this one. We can keep mixing. See how now it's softer?
Yes, and then
You need
it
to
seems
keep-
to be more, more watery.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave this here. This is oats, and then I'm gonna put some melaleuca. You can call it, you have this here, melaleuca or tea tree oil.
Tea tree oil would be more, likely to be found in our stores.
So
but
tea-
I'm sure maybe in some stores you may find them.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you can add honey if you want.
For the purposes of moisture retention, I believe.
Yes. So maybe if you give me a little bit more.
Water,
Yeah.
like that.
And then you're gonna keep mixing. And let's
So
get,
how often would one put the face mask?
you can do it once a week. Unless you have a problem with acne, maybe if you wanna do it for a week, daily, it won't hurt.
Yes.
Now, it's important to note that if your skin is very white,
Yes.
the Moroccan clay is going to be too strong for your skin. For me, I can use Moroccan and I'm fine. But some people have very sensitive skin, so then they need to use kaolin or bentonite.
And for us who are dark-skinned,
Any,
we can enjoy
any,
the colors. Okay.
any.
That's
And you can also use it for your hair. You can use a hair
How
mask.
does it help in the hair?
It helps because it draws anything that is unwanted from the scalp,
Yes.
and it nourishes the hair.
So it would get rid perhaps of dandruff or maybe
Yes.
the micro, okay, if you have any, maybe an infection or
Yes.
something like that.
So
And same thing, maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks, something
once a
like
week
once
or
a week
once a month.
would be
The
good.
Moroccan is very good for the hair.
Wow.
So I'm gonna I put gloves because you'll see how easy it is to just grab it with your fingers and mix it nicely and then put it on his skin. Now I wanted to show you something like this. If you can get like cheesecloth, is that how you call this?
Yeah,
Cheesecloth?
Muslim cloth,
Yeah.
yes.
You could make a big poultice and
Yes.
apply it on your abdomen. And then you apply it here and then you put it on your abdomen. Same as we did here, but a big one.
Yes.
So it depends on the size of the area. That's the size of your poultice. Are we ready? Thank you, Ethan. Okay. So we're gonna apply this, and this is a face mask. And it's soothing. It feels really nice. It's warm.
Especially because you put the tea tree.
So this is gonna.
So teenagers,
Yes.
older men and women,
Yes.
anybody who has troubling skin should allow nature to do its business.
Yes. And you can mix it with charcoal. You can do 1 teaspoon of clay and 1 with charcoal.
To even remove more toxins.
Yes. Any blackheads, anything in the skin is gonna put your lips inside. So I can go up here. And you can actually go all the way to your neck. I'm not gonna do the neck on him, but you can actually put it on your neck. So then this is not covered, so he's just gonna keep this for 15 minutes, and it's gonna get dry, and then he can just wash it. And
I think because it has the tea tree, I'm seeing his eyes getting teary. Is it because of the
is it burning?
oil?
No,
Not burning. Okay.
maybe he wasn't blinking.
True. So this you'll just stay there for those 15
minutes. It's gonna get dry, and he's gonna feel the skin stretching, and then he can just wash it.
Wow, this is beautiful. And then I'm just thinking, for if you have, let's say, an injury and you end up putting or have some clay on your face, would that be a problem?
No problem, because clay actually they use it for open wounds.
Yes.
So there are many studies where they apply the French green clay for flesh-eating bacteria. I don't know if you've seen these wounds, and they apply the French green clay, and they actually heal.
And within no time they absorb the
You have to keep doing it every day, or for diabetic ulcers on the legs or venous ulcers, you can do clay. If there are no other options, this is a very, very good option.
So even those very, the diabetic ones can be really stubborn. And so someone can actually use this to, to heal the wounds that...
Yes. We're going to talk about honey in another occasion.
Yes.
And I can tell you about how we do with the diabetic wounds with honey. But when there's infection, the clay is actually very good for infection. So.
I'm thinking of somebody who is somewhere maybe in the village or maybe somewhere, and they want to access this clay. What is the best thing you can advise us? Because maybe it's not in this powder form, it's not dried. What is it that they need to know? Maybe some precautions?
So you need to be careful if this one is treated in a special way, so it's not going to cause you any infection. Well, if you're in the village and you need to find something for an emergency or for the inflammation, go next to the river or where you have water and find your clay there. So you're going to dig, and you're not going to take the one on top, but you're going to go a little deeper and find the one that's more pure, that is inside the earth.
And you should be free to use it. It shouldn't be much of a problem.
That's right.
I see this a lot in my village. I see red clay and also the white clay. So I know now we should not be struggling with a lot of bad-looking faces, because there is a solution right there in nature.
That's right.
Wow, wow, that is very, very interesting. Can someone use this internally? Maybe you should mention that.
I'm going to mention that clay can be used internally. It's just a pinch. They use it for detox, but you need to be very careful and make sure it's the right clay.
So it's just a pinch, it's not a scoop, it's not a spoon, it's not like charcoal.
So the one I mentioned, the one that you get next to the river, maybe that's not the one that you should be eating. So you need to find one that it's been treated, because they disinfect, they make it sterile, that it's free of any germs.
Wow, thank you very much, Esther. This is easy. It can be done. You can do it from home, and we all don't need to look ugly on the outside for sure. It's such an easy face mask, and it doesn't cost us much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ethan, for being here with us today. And for more information, please check our YouTube channel, our Twitter handle, and you can talk to us. The phone number displayed there. Send in your questions, and we will be so glad to answer them. And we look forward to having you again. For now, it's bye-bye from us.